Welcome back. In the first 4 chapters, we've covered net present value, perpetuities and annuities, capital budgeting rules, and a whole lot more. Now we're already on to chapter 5. In this video, we'll talk about inflation. I've already briefly mentioned inflation earlier, and pretty much everyone already knows the basics because everyone has experienced it, especially over longer time frames and for the few years after COVID. So let's just firm up what you already know. Most of the time, economically developed regions like the United States, Europe, Japan are also very low inflation countries, at least over reasonably short time periods like a year or a few years. This allows most of us to work and think primarily in quote-unquote nominal terms, which means not inflation adjusted. It works pretty well most of the time. But when it doesn't, and it may not at some point in your lifetime, or wherever you may be working, you better understand how to deal with it. So there's also quote-unquote in real terms, which means inflation adjusted. It's obviously more important in high inflation countries. I hope you will be real interested in this topic. Bad pun. Nominal cash flows means a nominal amount of dollars. Real cash flows means adjusted for inflation. Real dollars have the same purchasing power all the time. Now, what if the US decreed that 1 cent today will be called $1 beginning on January 1st next year? Well, we'd have huge one-time inflation. It's not really an inflation rate. It's just one time. A rate would be an ongoing process. It would also be irrelevant under certainty because we all know what it's going to be, and come next January 1st, we just express everything in a different set of units. There would be no disagreements. Everybody would know that a cent is now $1. That would be it. So again, inflation is not a violation of perfect capital markets. Agents can just contract in terms of real dollars, and everything about inflation goes away. It's not a hindrance to arbitrage. Now, let's do inflation adjusting of cash flows. Let's say I have nominal interest rates of 10% per year. We invest $100 for 1 year. Bread sells for $2 per loaf today. So $100 purchases 50 loaves of bread today. If bread inflation over the next year will be 4%, then what will 1 loaf of bread cost next year?
Please pause this video now, answer the question on a piece of paper, and then continue.
Yeah, that's easy. $2 times 1.04, it will cost $2.08. How many loaves of bread can you then eat if the bank pays you $110?
Please pause this video now, answer the question on a piece of paper, and then continue.
Well, you have $110. Each loaf of bread costs $2.08. Therefore, you can consume 52.88 loaves of bread. You started with 50 loaves of bread, and you earned 2.88 loaves of bread extra, which is the equivalent 52.88. It's like a rate of return of 5.77%. So your real rate of return is 5.77%, not 4%, not 10% as what the bank pays you in nominal amounts. What is the formula that relates the nominal rate, 10%, the real rate, 5.77%, and the inflation rate? Can you guess it?
Please pause this video now, answer the question on a piece of paper, and then continue.
It's our familiar 1 plus formula approach again. 1 plus 0.0577 times 1 plus 0.04 turns out to be 1 plus 10%. And as with rates over multiple periods, if the rates are small and the number of periods are small, if you add the two, you're not going to be far off. So the inflation adjustment formula is 1 plus the real rate times 1 plus the inflation rate is 1 plus the nominal rate. Why is this a 1 plus type formula? Sorry, my intuition is not that good. I had to convince myself with this example here. The addition approximation, omitting the cross terms, is usually reasonable when inflation is only about 2 to 3% per year. It becomes rather problematic if inflation is higher. Let's look at some other countries. For 2025, the IMF expects Argentina to have an inflation rate of 240%, Turkey 30%, Egypt 20%, Russia 6%, and us no longer the 3% we have today, but 2%. For us, it's reasonable. For Argentina, Now, let's work with real dollars. Define the consumer price index, short CPI, as 1.0 today. So $1 is $1, sometimes called inflation-adjusted dollars. Sometimes when people say in today's dollar, it's not clear whether they're discounting or whether they are just adjusting for inflation. So you better ask under those circumstances. So $1 tomorrow is 1 divided by 1 plus pi t here, which in this case is 4%. So your nominal $110 next year is going to be equal to an inflation-adjusted real $105.77. In fact, if you go back a few slides, you will see it on the previous slides. We said that this is what it gets you. So, a project returns $110 in nominal cash next year. The cost of capital nominal is 10%. Therefore, the present value is $100 and the inflation rate is 4%. What is the purchasing power of this future $110 in today's real dollars? We just did that.
Please pause this video now, answer the question on a piece of paper, and then continue.
The answer is 105.77. What is the real cost of capital?
Please pause this video now, answer the question on a piece of paper, and then continue.
We did that too, 5.77%. What is the project's real dollar value discounted by the real cost of capital?
Please pause this video now, answer the question on a piece of paper, and then continue.
Same thing as if it were nominal, $100. So always discount nominal dollars with nominal costs of capital, nominal discount rates. Discount real dollars with real rates. Never mix nominal cash flows with real rates or real cash flows with nominal rates. What is the current nominal interest rate? What is the current CPI and its associated annualized inflation rate? What is the current real rate?
Please pause this video now, answer the question on a piece of paper, and then continue.
I typically grab the US inflation rate from a website called Fred, and if I want to get foreign inflation rates, I go to the IMF website. It turns out that there's another good source. They're called TIPS. TIPS stands for Treasury Inflation Protected Securities. These are bonds where the payments are automatically inflation adjusted. So in the future, if inflation is higher, they pay a higher coupon. Economists also use this often to extract a forecast of inflation rates and risk from these tips. For example, you can use them to find out whether sudden changes in the nominal yield curve, which we haven't talked about yet, are due to sudden changes in expected inflation or not. But this is still getting too deep into the weeds for us. Still, just quickly, what is the current nominal interest rate? What is the current CPI? What is the current real interest rate? In early 2025, Fred told me that the inflation rate over the last year was about 3% per annum, 3% per year. If I look at the TIPS rate, which I do by going to the Treasury website or to a commercial site like TipsWatch, I find that at that time, the 10-year implied inflation rate was about 1.6% per year. So inflation at the moment, or used to be, higher than investors seem to expect it to be in the future. One more thing. We lived in a perfect capital market without taxes. In the real world, you have to pay taxes on interest receipts. How much does a taxed retail investor with a 40% federal and state income tax earn in real terms on short-term treasury bonds today?
Please pause this video now, answer the question on a piece of paper, and then continue.
It turns out usually that is a negative real rate of return after accounting for inflation and taxes. So in early 2025, the inflation rate was about 3%. The short rate was about 4.5%. After taxes, this left 60% of the 4.5%, about 2.7%. So every year, highly taxed investors saving up money in short treasuries lost just a little bit of purchasing power. So they could buy just a little bit less of the same basket of goods. That's it for this video and for inflation and real returns. In the next video, we'll get to the main subject of this chapter, the yield curve. See you soon. Bis bald.
When I was young 50 years ago, you could go to the grocery with $1 and come home with enough food to feed your family for a week.
Well, Grandpa, we recently learned about it at school, and that's called inflation.
No, it's not inflation. It's all the securities cameras that they have these days.
Oh?